Okay, so today we have a slightly different than normal topic because what started off as a simple introduction to the use of AI in genealogy has sort of grown into a general introduction to what's happening in this whole world of AI chatbots. What are they? How do they work? Because the fact of the matter is that the way that this fits together integrates into all of our lives in many different ways. And it's now long past the point where you could avoid it. And the main reason is because AI is now embedded in a lot of the websites we use. We just don't happen to necessarily notice it's there. We just sort of take what it does as common and all the rest. And to use a simple example for the genealogists, if you use Ancestry and you put your family tree in, it will display your tree with little green leaves. Okay, and the green leaves are hints about things they have found within the whole Ancestry website that might relate to that particular person. Well, all that is AI. It's artificial intelligence looking at their big website and saying, I wonder if this relates to that particular person. Okay. All right. So we'll start with what is artificial intelligence. I did my first work in artificial intelligence in 1963, at which point I was a proud possessor, which I still have, of the first programming manual that was ever written for artificial intelligence for students. And but it's technology that performs tasks that you think of as requiring human intelligence. Over time, this has gradually expanded in what we think of to the point where we're now talking about its ability to do things that may eventually go beyond human intelligence. We're not there. Now, the term chatbot you'll run into frequently. It's an AI program that can talk to you, answer questions, or help you online, and respond to follow-up questions. So if you've ever used the old version of Google, you know, what you did was you put in your little search, and then when it was done, you said, I wish I'd asked it slightly differently. That's what the chatbot does. The chat says, oh, you might have thought about doing it differently, or you put it in different, and it remembers everything it's already done with you. The three we'll talk about today are Google Gemini, ChatGPT, and a program called Perplexity. So the thing to focus on here is actually the term smart search, your personal research assistant. When we're using one of these chatbots, we are basically engaging a personal assistant. It's sort of like one of the examples I'll use is, have you ever wanted to know who had brunch on Sunday of the various restaurants in Sonoma? Okay, well, if you have that question, it's easy to find. All you have to do is get a list of all the restaurants, sign on to their websites, and search for whether or not they have brunch, right? Sure. Well, chatbot is your research assistant. You basically say, what restaurants in Sonoma have brunch on Sunday? And it gives you a list because it does all that research for you. Okay. So what we've moved from is keyword-based search. That's how Google got started, was you put a bunch of words in and it would look for a page on the internet that had all those words. And how Google made all its money was it had a proprietary way of prioritizing those. So in fact, the top one was likely to be one that had the information you wanted as best it could find and go on down. But if you use the word, a general word that was wrong, maybe not that wrong, okay, but suppose you said the East Rec meeting room when you meant the East Rec Center. Okay. If you say East Rec meeting room, Google couldn't find it. But if you said East Rec meeting room to one of the chatbots, they would say, and this is what the term semantic search means. What is this person really trying to get at? What is the context? And now, what are the semantics? What are the alternative terms or ways of thinking of that that would find what he's looking for? Well, a meeting room looks to me like it could be what he's looking for. So I'm going to find, uh, center. So I'm going to find a center and see if that works. So this is worth staying on for a minute. Everybody sort of see where we're going so far.
Yep.
Smart search, research assistant, doing work that you could do, but may be too intensive or to require you to know terms that you don't necessarily know. You may not know the correct semantics. To use an example, we'll get into an example later I'll use, but I have done some research with enslaved people because I happen to have a niece who's married to a young man uh, who all of whose great great grandparents were slaves. And, until I got into it, I didn't know that the term of art was enslaved people, that a lot of the modern articles don't say slaves, they say enslaved people. Okay. The other term that of art we'll run into is generative AI. And you run into a lot of this in what I would call the local the national news. Okay, this is where the student has answered the question from the teacher, write me an essay on, and has gone in and said to the chatbot, write an essay, would you please? And it does it. You also get the give me a picture of Elon Musk in a Pope's uniform. Okay, and it can do that. But that's not really as much what we're talking about as things like I'd like to have a table that would show over 50 years how many people lived in the Chicago area between 1820 and 1870. Okay. So it will create, not just find an answer, but it will create a table. All right. So why are you here? If you understand how to use AI, you get better information faster. And it really requires a change of thinking because you literally can tell the AI, here is the context of what I am doing. Can you help me do it? And the AI will say, yeah, I can do that. Uh, it asks, you can ask logical follow-up questions. We'll go through a number of examples today where I'll show that. And whether you like it or not, you're already using AI. It's embedded in many websites. Okay. So as we explore it, think about questions you'd like to ask. Don't have to be limited to genealogy. All right, I'm going to stop here. Anybody have sort of a where are we coming from? Where are we going? Okay, we'll talk about that a little. This is a question about, can you ask, for example, for a question to get into the archives of a particular country? Okay. And the answer is a mixed answer. If it's public information, not behind a firewall, meaning you don't have to have a user ID and a password to get to it, it often can find it. Not always, okay? Um, Sometimes it requires you to be able to gingerly push it, okay? You have to find quite the right phrase for it. But if it's behind it, you have to sign into a website to get information. It can't look behind that. Okay. You were going to add something? Okay, so this is the classic question about AI hallucinating, presenting you with information that isn't quite correct. Um, and the question was, if you're asking about the population of New York City in 1790, there may be three different sources that give three different estimates. And how do you sort of sort those through? And you'll see in the answers we come up with, it will tell you different sources have different estimates. Okay, here are the estimates as best we can tell, and it probably is closer to this than to that. Okay, we'll talk, for example, about how big was a unit in the Revolutionary War. Okay, and so we'll talk about the answer it gives. Okay, which is that kind of an answer. It's a kind of yes, but answer. Okay. Um, and in fact, a lot of the things that people think the AI is hallucinating is where it has conflicting information and it's trying to figure out what you want. But it also, all of these chatbots will give you links to their sources. So if you say, I really would like to know more about the population estimate that was in the census, okay, it'll have a little number there, and you click on the number, and you're off and running. Okay, this is an interesting example. Um, I wanted to start by saying, how did the Google search used to look? And the answer is it's changed, and you can't get how it used to look. Because if you go to Google, you don't get this. So I asked Perplexity, one of those chatbots, I said, create for me what Google would have looked like if it was answering the question, where did the Philadelphia and Lancaster Turnpike go? And so in a generative AI mode, this is what it came up with. Okay, now you'll see it's a little jumbled in between and all the rest, but it's just an interesting example of how the generative AI works. And by the way, you could refine this if you wanted to, if you actually wanted to get something that was 100% as close as possible to correct. Okay. Okay, we're going to go over to a different screen. So I'm going to stop sharing. So this is what Google looks like now. And what you'll see right from the beginning is over on the right-hand side, it offers you AI mode. So you can, from the beginning, be doing your search in AI mode. But our question we were asking, so in the current AI, current regular version of Google, it's doing an AI search for you. It's giving you the answer, not giving you a set of URLs yet. You don't have to look at it, but this, for example, is going to be a map of the turnpike. This, by the way, for those who, this is the first macadam kind of road, hard surface road, um, built between the, okay. So we're going to show more. Okay. And now we can dive deeper it somehow decides that what you want to do is know where it went by looking at modern roads. But then it says, now here's the history. You can look at this. Okay. Now, here is ask anything. What it's doing here is it's saying, do you want to continue this discussion with some other question? Sure. Now look at that sentence. Okay. I'm saying it. Okay. So it better know the chatbot, Google, better know what the heck I'm talking about, right? Paper by private investors. Uh, capital was oversubscribed, et cetera. Okay. So and it was a toll road. Okay. They it was a turnpike because it in fact had a at various places it would have a bar across the road, and if you wanted to take your uh, Conestoga wagon along the road, you got to the bar, you had to pay money, and then they'd raise the bar and you could keep going. So turnpike. Okay. Yeah. The note was that AI responses may include mistakes. Learn more. And that this goes back to what I was saying before. This is a good research assistant, but like all research assistants, either their sources may be conflicting. Okay. That happens to us all the time. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to go over to perplexity, which is one I like a lot. Okay. So let's ask a question. So this is a common question that people will have. Um, what is it that I have to do to get a subscription to Ancestry? And here you'll see it's created a table. It describes the different levels to begin with, and then create a table. All memberships renew automatically, et cetera. Uh, Free trial, et cetera. Okay. It obviously could tell where I didn't type correctly. There is a student discount offered. The reason that's important is if you take Denise's class, it makes you a student at the SRJC, and you can sign up for Ancestry at a student rate, okay, which is substantially cheaper than the regular rate. But you do have to go to but you do have to go to her classes, at least some. Yeah. Yes, that's a percentage discount. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff you may have as questions. Are there specials, et cetera? So let me show you two things here. One of them is that if I go to home, oh, let me do this. Okay. Questions of this kind I find are quite common in genealogy. Okay, so an immigrant traveling from New York to Sioux Falls would probably use
Okay,
the,
babe.
hello? Okay. Use the railroad network. They board a train in New York, travel to Philadelphia and then to Chicago, and go to one of the local lines. Railroads are clearly the fastest, but it would have been lengthy and strenuous. Comparative tables, okay, the railroad wagon. Um, so it's a description, and you might, for example, ask a follow-up, which might be, what might this have cost? Okay. Okay, it would have been between $30 and $50 for a one-way third-class ticket. Now, this would be among the things that would have multiple sources with multiple alternatives. So transcontinental fares might have been lower. There was an immigrant ticket class. Okay. Um, most immigrants travel third class, yes. Um, so again, a little table. So if we want to start another new one. This is another common search, which is interesting, which is if you know that one of your ancestors served in a particular unit during the Revolutionary or Civil War, or for that matter of fact, during World War I, World War II, okay, you can ask this kind of a question and quite often get a reasonable answer. So it was stationed at Richmond Courthouse, then it joined the larger forces. It was part of Washington's forces. It fought at the Battle of Brandywine, Battle of Germantown, okay, etc. So you get a whole bunch of facts about the unit, okay? So the regiment had 10 companies, each with about 60 men, making a unit 600 men, a regiment 600 men. However, operational strength was often lower due to conditions. And okay, now, so you will note at the bottom, it has come up with suggestions for follow-up questions. This is very common, okay? You will also note here it has sources. Where did it find this information? Okay. And steps. What steps is as it began to do the research, it was searching little things that would give it more knowledge about the topic. And sometimes this is interesting just to see how it approached the research process. Since you're going to grade your research assistant, you want to see how they did their work as well as what the final result was.
That's pretty amazing.
I think a number of you know I do research in enslaved people because I've got a niece whose husband, all of his great grandparents, as far as I know, were slaves. Okay. And here, what you get is a lot of really good how to do it information. Okay. So you can take your way through this. And then here are questions you might want to follow up. Actually, I'm going to hold off on the follow up to that one for now. This is another very common. I know that you can find other names for towns because of different languages that were present. So a town in Lithuania would have had Lithuanian, Polish, Russian, maybe German, and of course Yiddish. So the town might not have everybody saying the same words. That, by the way, is a building in Anuscus. It shows you where it is. The Trakai area is Troki, different names right there. Lithuanian Anuscus. Uh, okay. Uh, it's not done as good a job today as it usually does for me. Okay. Oh, okay. Let me go back to Google then. Oh, I want to do one other thing. So you've been doing this work today and you say, I'd like to ask another question to the one that dealt with um, uh, the master. Okay. So it can bring it back up. It keeps a memory and just you can take off where you left off. Okay.
Nice. That is great.
Okay, again, a very common problem when you're trying to take yourself back. I had almost a decade of work I had to do trying to get myself into the Jamestown Society because I had a broken link. So what can I do? You can contact the society directly as a master database, main membership, find your local society, speak with historian, other things for broken links, uh, verify sources, use the Wayback Machine, etc. What are common reasons that Mayflower lineage links break? Okay. So again, lots of how to, lots of follow your logic as we're going through. We have a question. We will talk about that in a minute. Okay, now we're going to go in a completely different place. So this is an unusual website whose purpose is to take handwritten materials in any language and convert them into text materials. So we're going to go down to the bottom here where it says drag an image or select a file. We're going to select a file. Okay, so this is the image it's going to start with. This is in Old German, handwritten. I'm sure all of you are quickly translating it as we're going through it, right? So you see the little symbol going up and down. What it's doing is a combination of trying to understand handwriting. This is a single person's handwriting, and what the words are. So, and if you don't think of this as being artificial intelligence cubed, okay, this is pretty wild.
George, will it also do Sutherland script?
I believe so. I mean, I just took this was the example I used, but I've in researching the site, okay, it basically claims it can do virtually anything
Wow.
and easy to test. All right, so this is the German it read. So now what I'm going to do is not totally obvious. So I'm going to copy this.
Hmm.
So we're going to the old Google Translate program. We're going to paste what we just saw, and we're going to get this description. Sir, I'm not bad at writing English. I ask a foreigner to carry my offer to the president. I've landed in it. This is Minnesota, but it's actually. Um, this is a German who is writing to President Lincoln because he thinks he's been rooked and he wants somebody to help him get his money back. Okay. I know it's not exactly perfect, but you go from where we started to this in about 3 minutes.
Amazing.
So these are examples of what is called embedded AI. It's there, but you don't see it. If you use MyHeritage, they do smart matching, which is a lot like the Ancestry Hints. They do photo enhancement, and they can take it. If you have somebody's information in there, they'll write you a biography of the person, and it's a pretty decent biography. Family Search does optical character recognition for full text search and handwriting. I think everybody remembers that this was the basis for getting the 1950 census online as fast as we did. And Ancestry, almost all the DNA relationship stuff is coming through AI. And in your everyday life, if you use Apple Intelligence or with Siri, or if you use Google Gemini as an assistant, or Alexa, or Copilot, those are all helping you understand how to work within the Apple, Google, whatever world. And of course, Google Photos can repair, improve, etc. And heck, you can do that on your telephone now. So there are four major chatbots. Google Gemini, which is also the AI mode, ChatGPT, which is a pretty well-regarded independent app, Perplexity, which is very powerful, and it allows you to organize your queries into folders, and Claude, which wipes out the others. It's much more powerful, but it's really designed for creative work. And then Transcribus and Google Translate. The ones that are asterisk, if you go on the website now, you will find there's a page about how do you get onto these and use them. Okay. So if you want to work within the free limits, you're only allowed a certain number over some time period for Perplexity. And if you're a casual user, that probably works fine. I happen to be a pretty much in-depth user, so I do pay the $20 a month. ChatGPT, uh, I find ChatGPT to be awkward to sign into. It wants too much information from you to create an account, but it is a very powerful program. And then Google Gemini, that's probably the best one to use for everyday use because it has no limits on how often you can use it. And I've not seen anything there that wanted me to have to pay money to use it. A lot of the paying money is to do the generative technology. When you want to play around with, can I make a picture of my two daughters like they're panda bears?
George, does Transcribus have a fee for translation?
It has a fee if you use it a lot, Peter. It's like the others, okay? If you my memory is it's something like you can get 50 pages a month for free. And then if you get if you're if you're trying to do 500 pages, you probably ought to pay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Okay.
you can access it without going to Perplexity AI?
Yeah, the transcribers that was a
Okay,
separate website. I
okay.
just typed I just typed the word transcribus in the top page.
Search, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, and we wrestle with these, but you can think about it. How do you do something? What is something? Can you help me with? What does something mean? Where can I find? I mean, sometimes I've found that the answers to questions I've posed include like an acronym for something buried in there, and I don't know what the acronym means. So my next question is, what does the acronym mean? I mean, you
Mhm.
know, can you summarize? What should I consider? Show me a map of. It was interesting with the Lancaster, Philadelphia Lancaster Turnpike. Okay, when you asked to see a map, it did what you would have expected. It had two maps. One map was what it looked like in 1792. The other is if you wanted to drive the closest thing you could today, here's how you would drive it. Okay. Okay, cautions. We talked about this, but AI programs cannot search websites that have to be accessed by a password. So if you are using this, it won't search inside Family Search, even though Family Search is free, because you've got to have a username and password to get in. The false answers part, you'll hear a lot of issues about AI programs have been given false information. As a researcher, you know that anything you get is not necessarily going to be 100% accurate. We were talking earlier about a posting on Find a Grave where somebody misread the dates on a particular tombstone. And so what you searched for was you got the wrong date. They confused a 3 and a 5. Okay. And finally, this is not specific to the chatbots, but don't include highly personal information or financial information. You certainly can do something like, how do I find the best CD interest rates in my banks? Or what are the current CD rates? But don't say, my account number XYZ is coming due on September 5th. What are I'm likely to see for rates? That all makes sense?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I am ready. If anybody wants to throw something at me, we can put it in and see what we get.
Yep.
I would ask that here in the room, if someone would walk the mic around, if there's anyone who has a question, so we can get it online for the people who are listening.
Do you want questions from the room first, or?
Well, sounds like I've got a question right now, so that's fine.
All right. So I'm interested in finding the grave or the cemetery, even for my grandmother, who is buried somewhere in Nice in the Haute-Maritime region. And I have the date of her death and her date of birth, if that's necessary.
Let's ask the general question first, okay?
Okay.
Because that sets the tone, says what the context is.
So you want me to ask the general tone?
Okay, this was in the area of Nice,
Nice.
France.
Yeah.
Okay, approximately when?
Uh, uh, Date of death is 7th of July, 1940. July, not January. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so this is the giving you the guidance.
Yeah, see, it says it can be challenging. I've tried. And, yeah,
Okay, French uh, would hold records of civilian deaths and burials.
yeah, I have that. Yeah.
Okay, um, Jewish heritage, significant Jewish community,
Yeah.
contact the Israelite cemetery in Nice.
Yeah, I've tried that too and haven't gotten any kind of response. Huh.
Okay, that's a lack of response, not a they. Okay, um, online databases, obviously. Um,
It's been a few years, George, so maybe
yeah.
I'm just going to try it again. But
Oh, I see why they're into it. Is the Italian invasion occurred in June? I was wondering why they had all the military in there, but here's the answer. The Italian invasion was going on.
Right.
Okay. So I don't know if that's helpful, but it's the kind of that's also the kind of approach I would do.
Okay.
I'm not sure who that is, but
I'm not
okay.
sure.
All right. Do we have another question? Even something to try.
How can I find out where my great aunt served in World War I as an Army nurse? I know her name, and I know she was an Army nurse in World War I.
Okay. Again, you don't have to copy this down. You can just put the same question in. Okay. Request or file from National Archives. How to request records. Okay. Um, these records are accessible to the public for a fee. You can check for her name on Army passenger lists. Okay.
So I wouldn't necessarily be asking where was Anna Grace McCready during World War I?
That's correct. Although occasionally that will work. Okay. The fact of the matter is that digging that deep is not currently easy to do with the current AI. Okay. And part of it is because, as it says here, here I've got U.S. American Red Cross nurse files, 1916 to 1959, which is a database inside Ancestry. Okay. It's not going inside Ancestry. Okay. Um,
Huh.
so I think the general is oh, this is interesting. Okay. American Journal of Nursing. All right. Um, okay. Any other questions or thoughts or Bob?
How can I find the obituary for my grandmother who died in El Cerrito, California in 1972? Two R's.
I'd like to see where it sends you off to, how this works.
Are you referring to here or way at the top?
Oh, this is fine. Here's the link there at the end of the word record. So what does it do?
Ah, there's a list of sites here that have information. Okay, these are the sites that it in fact searched to get you insights. Okay. So here's the site for the California newspaper collection, digital collection of historical records. These are the papers that it has. Okay. Digital reel. Okay. So this is one of the places it found information for us. Okay. Okay, and this is the search routine, Bob. Okay. So, and again, you can put the same search into Google AI and it'll get you there. Okay, that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so the structure of this is unlike what you might have hoped for, which is that you could put your ancestor's name in and say, pull up the birth certificate and the marriage license. Okay, it's not going to do that because that's inside all these databases that are in Family Search and Ancestry and all of that, unless it's a newspaper article. Okay, the way I search often for living people is I will put the name into Google. Historically, I'll put it in because it'll find the newspaper article that's the picture of my sister when she got married in whatever year that was long ago. But it's the newspaper's online. But if it's not online for free, okay, they're not going to find it. But they will tell you how to find it. And my experience so far has been reasonably accurate in getting you over a hump, understanding how the next research might go. Okay, other questions, thoughts? Online, anybody? Okay, well, thank you very much. Next month, we're going to try bring your thoughts and share them. So the two ideas I've had, one is send me a picture of a wedding in your family that you'd like to talk about. Okay, just as weddings can be an interesting historic thing. They pull together lots of this is the way the world used to be. Okay, and if you've got one of those, that would be great. I have a faux wedding. Okay, there was no pictures taken at the time of the actual marriage, and at their 50th anniversary, they held a faux wedding. But it wasn't just a celebration it was like a real wedding. Okay, but that kind of thing. The other one is I'd like you to think about someone you have talked to who was able to provide information about someone you wish you had known better in your family. The aunt who was really interesting, but she died when you were 10 years old, and all you know is she was really interesting. Okay. So somebody you've talked to who has said, oh, here's what I can tell you about Ollie. Here's what we thought of her, and here, it's one way of doing genealogical research that if you can do it, is a lot of fun. Although most of us are now the generation of people that someone else has to find in order to do that. We know the people nobody else knew.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you all. And
Yeah,
we'll
George, thank you. This has been really useful.
Okay, and this has been recorded and will be on the website in another day or so.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.